Cluttered spaces are the physical manifestation of cluttered minds. Let's unpack that.
Let's do this.
It's showtime.
You're listening to the Thoughts of a Blog Queen podcast.
These are just my thoughts.
With your host, LaRae Renee.
A woman, her thoughts, and a mic.
Are you ready? Check this out.
Hey, y'all. Y'all know what time it is? Y'all know what that sound means? That means I am ready to pour into you. All right, so I got our 3 affirmations for this entry. I want you to take those, put them in your pocket, but don't forget to share them. Share them with other people, all right? So here are your affirmations. Affirmation number 1 is, I deserve to move through life with ease. I deserve to move through life with ease. Affirmation number 2, I am deserving of healthy relationships with those who value me. I am deserving of healthy relationships with those who value me. And affirmation number 3 is, I have the knowledge and ability to achieve everything I want. I have the knowledge and ability to achieve everything I want. All right. So, all right, you guys, those are your 3 affirmations. Thank you guys for tuning in to another entry. Happy Self-Care Sunday if you are listening to this on the day that the episode dropped, or just happy whatever day it is, whenever you're tuned into this. But if it is Self-Care Sunday, you guys know that my wishes for you are that you're doing something that is for you. You're doing something that you love. You're doing something that comforts you. You're doing something that nurtures you. You're doing something that is promoting your own self-care. No one else's, just your own. All right. So you guys, as you can see by the title of this entry, entry 38, welcome back again, you guys. And if you're new to listening, welcome. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for taking the time out to come and check out the Thoughts of a Blog Queen podcast. I appreciate that. And I hope that you stay around through the end of this entry. And I hope that maybe you might just come back and visit me again for entry number 39 and 40 and 41 and so on and so forth. All right. So you guys, let's talk about clutter. So, yeah, about the clutter. And let me just say this in advance, you guys. I am doing a lot of different experimenting with the sound systems that I am using. So I am praying on everything. I did multiple testing on the sound system that I'm using right now. So I am hoping that everything is okay on this end. So I hope that you guys can hear everything clearly and everything is good to go. But anyway, so let's talk about clutter. So the quote, cluttered spaces are the physical manifestation of a cluttered mind. And I think that makes perfect sense, right? Because when you have cluttered spaces, what is clutter? Clutter is just the accumulation of a lot of stuff, right? It's the accumulation of a lot of things that you may or may not even need, right? But they're in a space somewhere in your home, in your office, in your car, wherever, that you just keep accumulating this stuff, right? It's just it's just messy. It's not tidy. It's not organized. It's clutter, right? And sometimes we tend to keep clutter in our homes. And I wanted to talk about it in this particular entry because I wanted to see if I can help myself and help the person that is intrigued by this particular entry to see if we can unpack a little bit of the connection between how there might be clutter in our minds, and that is why we tend to keep accumulating all of this stuff. So the psychology, I'm going to get a little bit deep with you guys. I'm not a psychologist, right? But I try to do a little bit of research and things when I want to talk about certain things, right? I try to just enlighten myself so I can come back and I can share with you guys, right? So the psychology behind a person that accumulates clutter is that they're holding on to some things. And this is something that, these are things that, and I don't mean physically, I mean mentally, I mean emotionally, right? And I'm going to preface this by saying maybe or may not, there may or may not be an issue. You know, some of y'all might just be messy and y'all just need to get it together and get rid of some of this stuff, right? So there's that. We got that out the way, right? So if you don't feel like there's anything else going on with why you keep continuing to clutter spaces around you, then it's just because you're messy. That's fine. This may not resonate with you, but I want to talk to the people who continue to do this and who have realized that they might be at a place in their life where they're overwhelmed and they continue to do it, right? Because I'm not saying that a person just cannot have just a week where, you know, by Friday, the end of the week, their house is just messy and then they go and tidy up and that just automatic, you know, because that happens too, right? But there's a difference in just your house being messy for the week and you haven't gotten around to straighten it up. And then there's actual clutter in your closets, clutter in multiple spaces in your house, right? And so you don't want to deal with stuff, so you put it in a particular area and you just throw it there, right? This can be in the form of a closet, a storage space, a junk drawer. How many junk drawers do you have in your house, right? This could be a garage full of things that you're just holding on to, that you keep saying you're going to get rid of, but for some reason you don't get around to it, right? So when we talk about the psychology of clutter, there was a study that Princeton did, and in this study it states that the accumulation of items is tied to emotional reasoning, right? And that retaining possessions might be linked to fears of scarcity or attachment to the past. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about fears of scarcity. How many times have you thought about something? And listen, I come from a place of experience. I know this. I did this for you. I kept holding on to clothes and shoes and items. I would hold on to them because I felt like, what if I need it one day? What if I can use it? Right? So I understand it. Again, listen, this is a safe space, and I talk from a space of either experience, understanding, empathy, or I just recognize it, right? And so I want to talk about it so I can help whoever I can help, hopefully, or at least guide, or at least bring awareness at the very least, right? So having a fear of scarcity, thinking that you might need something one day. I used to do that all the time. Like, you guys ever get something that you have to put together, and I just wanted to turn that down a little bit. But you guys ever get something that you had to put together and it would come with like extra tools or extra things, right? Or extra screws or whatever. Like, I would hang on to things like that, right? And that might not necessarily be like, I mean, that might be a smart thing to do, right? Because you never know when you'll need something. But that right there is the statement that I would always use in my reasoning for holding on to just an abundance of things. I never know when I might need something. And in doing this, like, I would accumulate just a lot of stuff, right? So in terms of like clothes, so let's just talk about the closet, right? for a long time, I would hang on to things thinking that, like, what if I approach a season in my life where I'm not able to get things that I need or things that I desire? That's where it was coming from. It was more so coming from, like, what if I get to a point in life that I'm not able to get, like, I'm going to need to hang on to stuff, because what if I'm not able to get something? And that right there is like overthinking. I am definitely a certified overthinker. And so sometimes I go way far beyond, and I will think of the worst case scenario, and that's due to anxiety, right? But I would think about if I would ever come to a period in my life where I would not be able to provide. And I was like, well, I need to have extra things. I need to have I need to make sure I have multiples of this and multiples of that, just in case I can't, I'm just ever in need, right? That a fear of scarcity. Fear that I might not ever be able to see this type of thing again, or I might not ever be able to get this, or they may not ever have this. You do shopping. A lot of people that kind of have a little bit of issue with spending and overspending, they will buy things and they will get multiple colors of things, of one thing, 2 and 3 colors of one thing, because they want to make sure that they just have these things. And this is how we're accumulating things. And again, you guys, please make sure that you're understanding that I'm not trying to say that the way that you choose to buy certain things, that automatically means that you're cluttering. You just have to be mindful of what you're doing, and just, listen to what I'm saying, because it will make sense to the person that it makes sense to. But having that fear of scarcity, like just thinking that you better get extras because maybe they're going to all be gone at some point, right? And you're just accumulating a lot of things, and you're spending extra out of this idea in your mind that you have to have it right then and there. You have to have it. So clutter, I feel like clutter and overspending and a lack of budgeting, those can all be connected. And then on the opposite end of that, they said that retaining possessions could come from an attachment to the past. So when we talk about an attachment to the past, let's talk about some of the things that you're holding on to that are linked to the past. And y'all know exactly where I'm going to go with this example when we're talking about relationships. How long will you hold on to things that are linked to the person that you had to end that relationship with? You will hang on to things. Especially when you're fresh out of that relationship. You'll hang on to stuff, right? And a lot of times when we're in the middle of that toxic cycle, we would hold on to things, and we would use that as a way to draw that person back in, or they would try to use that as a way to get back in. Whereas, like, yeah, I need to come and get my stuff, or you need to come and get your stuff, knowing full well they don't need the stuff, or full well they don't really need it. But that's that cycle. That's that cycle of, like, pull and push, tug of war, and leaving that door open to get back in, right? But when it is done and when it is over and you're still holding on to some of the things that are connected to this person that you had to let go of, then there is an emotional attachment there. And that is what you need to try to cut ties with. So then you have to let go of these things. And you have to figure out what in your mind is keeping you from letting go of those things. When I had to let go of the relationship that hurt me the most, there was a lot of things that I had, and I'm gonna be really honest, I had to let go of those things like in phases. I could not just get rid of everything all at once. And you know what I was thinking of? I was thinking about, what if this isn't it? What if this isn't it? And what if this person comes back in my life and then I don't have these things anymore? I still want to hang on to these things because I was still holding on to the idea that this was a relationship that was going to be what I needed in my life. So I'm holding on to it, right? And I was trying to hold on to things. But do you realize that not only are you holding on to the physical things attached to that person, but you are holding on to an energy of that person? Yes, things contain energy, and not just physical things, pictures. How many pictures in your phone are you still holding on? And I'm telling you, in this particular relationship, like, I had tons and tons and tons and tons of photos, right? I had lots of photos, and I didn't want to let go of this stuff. And then, because I was trying to get over on myself, right? Like, let me tell you. So I would have like my actual photo album in my phone. But not only did I have the photo album in my phone, but my photos automatically linked to like my Google photos, right? So I would be like, okay, I'm going to delete these photos out of my photo app. But in the back of my mind, deep down inside, I knew I still had backup photos in the Google, in my Google app. So it was a process for me, right? And I'm telling you, I literally, and it was just different places in my phone where I literally had to go through, and I had to, on different times and at different points in my healing journey, that I had to go through, and I had to remove these photos and these reminders of this particular person. But I was hanging on to it, and I realized, we talk about healing, and we talk about how like for me, at least I talk about it. I feel like, you never really know how long healing is actually going to take, and who's to say healing ever really stops. But I noticed that as I went through and I released attachments and things that I had and photos and things, it felt a little bit better each time afterwards, as hard as it was for me to actually get rid of it. And I'm telling you, I really tried to get over on myself, but I really had to be intentional about it, right? Because you can delete something and it's really not deleted. You got to really delete it off of these phones. You got to really delete the stuff. But then I found myself, as I went further down on my healing journey, I found myself really, really getting rid of these things, videos, and just think, you know what I mean? The first step that I had to get rid of, and this is what I want to encourage you to do if you're still trying to, we're still talking about clutter, you guys. So stay with me on this, but there's a connection to all of this. But the first thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get rid of that text thread. And I know that's not going to be easy. And if you are like me, like you may have had a very long, detailed text thread, right? And when you're with someone and you love with someone, you might go back and you might read text messages that you shared, and it might be good things, it might be bad things, especially if you're a words of affirmation type of person. You go back and you read some of the things that a person says. That's the person that you were spending your life with. So you go back and you read those things. You have to start with deleting that text thread, sis. Delete it. You have to. Unless you're hanging on to it for some sort of like other reason, like legal reasons, and you needed like proof or something like that. You know what I mean? If it's deep like that, then I get it. But like outside of that, you have to start with getting rid of that. And then you slowly move into getting rid of the photos and the videos and things like that. But I had to literally go through my phone. I had to go through my closet for old, things that this person left, or, you know what I mean? I had to find pictures, like actual physical pictures that I had, like in my office. Like I had it, but it was a phase and it was a process, and it didn't all happen at once. It didn't. It took some time because there was an emotional attachment there, but there was a clutter of things that I was holding on to in my house that was attached to this person, that was connected to this person. And I was hoping to try to feel better and hoping to heal. But how can I do that if I still have these things in my life? So that's what they're talking about. They're talking about an attachment to the past. And I was most definitely attached to that past. So that's one form of how we hold on to something. and how that is clutter. Clutter is not just, I want you guys to still take clutter as literal, but I want you to also use the clutter as just kind of like the analogy, like the metaphor. It's just a bunch of things in the physical form, right? But mentally, the clutter is just the accumulation of something that you cannot let go of. So when we talk about the spaces that we frequent a lot, our homes, our office space, what does your office space look like? What does your office desk look like? Is your office desk cluttered? And if so, how are you functioning at work? And this is a question that I want you to ask yourself. When we get into part 2 of this entry, we're going to talk more about the self-reflective questions and ideas that you can ask yourself. But this right here, if you have a cluttered desk or a cluttered office space, a lot of us are working remotely or work from home. We have our own office space, or even if you don't have your own office space, but just how is your office space, wherever it is, how does it look? Is there clutter there? And if it is, how are you functioning in your role? How easily are you getting frustrated? How are you, or are you just operating in this chaos? When I start a new week, by the time I get to Friday, I realize how I'll have just all of these notes and things everywhere. I'll have, there will be, I'm going to be honest, there will be accumulation of just random little things, notes and things, post-it notes, of things. There might be, just whatever, just random, just notebooks and just things that have accumulated that I have pulled out and that I've used over the week. And by the time Friday comes, I have all of this stuff on my desk space. And if I don't deal with it right then and there, and I come back to it Monday, I have to get myself together Sunday. I have to go back and I have to check my space, and I have to make sure that I clear everything. I put everything back in order. I have to, just kind of get myself together. But I have to do that Sunday before I go back into my office. I have a home office too, right? So I have to, before I go back to that space on Monday morning, I have to, I can't walk into it and start the tidying up and start the organizing and start the getting rid of stuff on Monday morning before I start work. No, make sure you deal with that before you start work. Deal with that Sunday night, or deal with that Saturday morning when you're doing your cleaning. Because you don't want to go down and try to start work and have to deal with the chaos first. The chaos that is the clutter on your desk. Because that's not going to start your day off on a positive note. It's already going to start. You're already going to be a little bit overwhelmed by everything that you need to organize first. Before you even log in or clock in or whatever it is that you do, before you even deal with anybody else, you're already having to deal with your space that you have to work in for however many hours out of the day. So don't deal with that on Monday morning, because that's you're asking to start the week off on the wrong foot by doing that. So deal with that prior, right? So that's just talk, but just think about that and think about how you maneuver and how you're functioning at work. When you become really self-aware of things, you're going to pay attention to more things. You're going to pay attention to how easily you get frustrated. You're going to pay attention to how, for me, I am so, when I maneuver through my emails and things, I'm organizing everything. I'm putting everything in folders that need to go there, wherever they need to go. I don't want to move on to the next thing until I am organizing, where everything goes. I have a folder for everything. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to sift and dig through the deleted box or the archive, but I know what specifically is going to go in my archive box, what's going to be deleted, I'm not going to deal with, what's going to go in this folder, this folder, this folder. This is how I function. This is an organized system. This is what helps me to stay on task and stay on top of things. And this is what gives me just a little bit more of a relief when it comes to how I function and what I'm doing with my job, right? we got to have some sort of organized system. And I'm going to talk about that. And I'm going to come back to that because I'm going to talk about reasons why we cluttered. And that's actually one of the solutions. But so again, when we talked about the emotional attachments and how things can be connected to the person from the past. And then we talked about like having clutter at work. When you're at home, what spaces in your home do you have clutter? Oftentimes it's like closets, hall closets, the closets in our bedroom where we our main things, our clothes and shoes. There might be a lot of clutter there. So I have this book, and this book is what actually inspired me to do this entry and talk about just clutter. And the book, it is a #1 New York Times bestseller. There were 3 million copies of this book sold, right? And it's not a very new book. I'm pretty sure it's been out for a while, but the book is called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And the subtitle is The Japanese Art of Decluttering and Organizing. And this is by Marie Kondo, right? And so in this book, she is like a professional. People go to her she gets paid to help people like tidy up and organize. And she has found the connection between that and like actually getting their life together, right? So I'm still working my way through the book. But there were definitely some gems throughout what I've read so far. But this book, it just talks about how as you work on tidying up the spaces around you that you have to operate in on a regular basis, how that is going to help you to get focused. And how your mindset is a big part of that. But how you start to tidy up and how you view organizing and things like that, this is directly connected to the clutter that you accumulate and just basically just like how you'll operate, right? And so it's an interesting book, and I do recommend it if you feel like that might be something that you deal with on a regular basis as far as dealing with clutter in your home. You know what I mean? Like, and because what do we be saying? Life be life, and right? When we're a mother and we're a wife and we work, we just have different things that we just got a lot going on, right? We're overwhelmed. And so, I think we get to a point where we look for the convenience, right? And I think that the convenience sometimes is to just put something in a specific space, and we think that because we can't see it, we're good to go, right? But in this book, she's talking about how you can't just consider just putting something in a specific space and because it's out of the way, think that is like the solution, that you've solved the problem, right? So, AKA the junk drawer. We have the junk drawer, right? Because that's just where we put some of the most random shit in our house in that drawer, right? But when you think about when you think about the junk drawer, just think about what's in your junk drawer. And I'm telling you, after I got through a certain point of this book, I definitely got up and took my ass in there to go work on the junk drawer, because I had a junk drawer. And the junk drawer is just something that is just in households. It's just the custom way, right? And you know what? We may never get rid of the junk drawer. We may never, but I do want to encourage you to consistently go through the junk drawer at least and see what's in there, and make sure you're not hanging on to stuff, because there was so much stuff in that drawer that I didn't even need, But I'm so accustomed to putting those types of random things in that drawer. It's just like, it's like second nature to me. But when I actually thought about it and I read this book and she gathered me together, I went to the drawer and I was like, look at all of this shit that I don't even need. It was like, yeah, okay, I see what she did there. But when she's talking to you in the book, she's basically saying that, you know, when you put your house in order, you begin to put your affairs in order. And you put your past in order. And as a result of doing this, you can see very clearly what you need in your life and what you don't, and what you should do in your life and what you shouldn't do. It's so much deeper than just having this stuff in your life and just holding on to it and just not wanting to let go of it. There's a whole other level to getting rid of these things. But, you know, they say that people can't change their habits, right, without first changing their way of thinking, right? Because what do we always talk about? Everything is mindset. That's literally almost turning into the tagline of this podcast, because I feel like I say it every entry. But it's true, right? Because everything is mindset. And if we can channel into that, we'll realize how much of that is like, how that has to do with so much of the things that we do in our life, right? So when you try to like talking about the junk drawer, when you're just putting things in this designated area, right? And you're thinking, okay, just put it in the junk drawer. It's out of the way. It's not out. It's, you know, when you have to clean up for the day, you're putting just stuff in this storage room, or you're putting stuff and it's out of the way and you don't physically see it, but that's not dealing with it. You have to start with discarding things first. You have to start with, that is the real solution to, you know, working through your clutter. You have to first discard the things that you know you really don't need. I know y'all see where I'm going with this. I know y'all hear it. And I know y'all hear it. Discard the things you know you really don't need. Get rid of the things. What is the bigger picture? What are you going to do with this? How is this thing serving you? What is the benefit of hanging on to it? Do you really need it? When they say, like, when you, and I apologize if you hear like background noise where I'm recording today, there's a lot of things going on where I'm, you know, there's things going on. So if you can hear the background, I'm sorry about that. But, so discarding the things that you know you don't need, where are you going to use this particular thing? Where are you going to use it? Do you really need it? Have you used it in the past few years? Has this thing been touched by you? Think about all of the things that you have in your closet, the clothes that you have. Have you actually used it within the past few years? Or are you just hanging on to it because you don't want to let go of it? I feel like if we can begin to figure out and begin to look at things for what they really are, we'll be able to clearly see why we don't need them. So when you think about the things in terms of the physical things, think about the people in your life that you need to discard. Think about the connections to people that you need to discard. Think about the habits in your life that you need to discard. Because these things are no longer serving you anymore. You no longer need them. You have no need for them. You will approach a season in your life, and this is kind of like a transitional season, and a lot of times, this was a part of the study too. When we approach a transitional season in life, there will be there's a very high chance that we may begin to accumulate clutter. If something stressful happens, if a big life change occurs, there's a very high chance that we are going to begin to clutter some things, because that is our mental reacting. That's how we're responding to what just has transpired in our life, and we have to be able to work through that. And we get stressed out, we get overwhelmed, and that is just what we're physically doing. And sometimes we don't even see it. It takes like, have y'all ever watched the show Hoarders? Me and my best friend, we watch this show all the time, and sometimes we get a few little funny little laughs out of it, but in reality, it's really not funny. It's not laughing at the people, but just, y'all know how those shows are. But when you think about the Hoarders, they have gotten to a point, if you watch that show, these people have gotten to ridiculous amounts of clutter in their home. And every single time they have gone through something, there's always a connection to why they have gotten to the point that they're at. And you may not be at hoarder status, but it just goes to show you that when a huge life change happens, a death, a loss of something or someone, a financial burden or change that has really impacted us in a negative way, just something major in our life, when that changes, that is usually the catalyst for what people who are psychologically considered hoarders, that's what has happened. There was a catalyst to that, and something major happened in their life to where that was the beginning of something. There may have been a trauma, and that is a response to a trauma. Human beings, listen, we are unique, and we respond to things in different ways. And clutter is just a very common response to dealing with, stress and anxiety and being overwhelmed. But that's what they say, like that transitional season, that is what happens. So I really just want you to take a look at some of the connections and some of the things that you need to discard, and not only the clutter in your life, but I want you to think about some of the things in your life that you might need to start really deciding, does this go in the need pile or does this go in the discard pile? Because when you start to get rid of some things, and I'm going to talk about that in part 2, but listen, it feels good when you let go of stuff. You feel light. You really do. You feel light. But when you are dealing with clutter in your spaces, even like when I said like in your workspace, when you're dealing with clutter, you are going to start building up like almost like a blockage, even creatively. You can build a creative block when you are accumulating too many things that you don't need. The creativity is an energy. If you're a writer and you're trying to write a book, for example, and you don't really have a free-flowing environment, the creativity is not going to flow the way that you want it to flow. It's not. So I want to talk about some of the reasons why, which I kind of was already doing that, but I really want to get into the reasons why, and I want to get into a problem and a solution for each of these reasons. I got 4 things for you, and then I'm going to wrap this up. So the 4 reasons why we clutter, starting with the first reason, is because obviously there's just too much stuff. We just have too much stuff. And that I can feel like resonates most with our closets. our closet spaces, do something with this stuff. You have to eliminate the excess, right? And there are ways that you can benefit that. So what I had to start doing is start organizing and getting things together. So because, well, one thing that I always do, you always can just donate. You can always donate the things that you don't need, the extra things that you have, which I do that. I have done that religiously over the years. I've always just given away things, loads of it. And I always feel better when I do it. But there's also on the other side of that, you can sell things. So the problem number one for clutter is because we have too much stuff. The solution to that, eliminate the excess. What can you do with the excess stuff? Just figure out the plan for the excess and execute the plan. Just do it. Don't think about it anymore. Especially when this is stuff, when we're talking about just a whole bunch of clothes and shoes and bags and accessories and just things like that you're just keeping it here and there. Eliminate the access. Sometimes you just have to just cut it short and just get rid of the stuff. Don't even try to come up with a plan for it. I know a person, and I mean, oh my gosh, this person has so much stuff, and the response to everything is, oh, I know I could probably sell that. But like, listen, you've been thinking about selling that for years. This same stuff you've been thinking about selling, but you haven't done it. You're holding on to it. So if you, after a certain point, if you haven't sold it, just let it go. Eliminate the access. All right. Problem number 2 in why we clutter, which is what I just touched on. We're in that transitional season. Something changed. Something that we're having to go through changed, and we're overwhelmed. So we don't want to deal with the organizing. We're not dealing with the tidying up and the cleaning. The best way to probably get through that is to start with small tasks on how you can maneuver through it, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed. This is all, you got to kind of see where you're at. Start with some of the small tasks and work on those. Even though, now in the book, on the contrary to that, I want to tell you that the author is talking about how that's not always the answer. Because she does argue to say that when you are trying to deal with a bunch of clutter and a bunch of other things, we always hear the advice, well, just start small, just work on a little bit at a time. But then she goes on to say, if you are just dealing with a little bit at a time, you're kind of mentally telling yourself that you got time, and you're not really going to see the impact of what it is that you're trying to work on, right? Because you're just working on a little bit, right? You're working on a little bit each day. So you're kind of just putting yourself in a mode of like, well, I'm going to just do this today. And I'll always, we settle, right? It's kind of like we settle, we talk ourselves out of actually being effective at what we're trying to do. And it's just like, I'm just do a little bit today, and I'll do a little bit tomorrow, and then I'll knock the rest. I'll have it done by the end of the month. Before you know it, this one project turned into a month thing. But really, she says that you should power through. You should really just power through, because when you power through something and you knock it out, you'll begin to see how empowered you feel by getting something, by getting whatever it was that you were trying to get done. She says that if you use the right method and concentrate your efforts on eliminating clutter thoroughly and completely within a short span of time, you'll see instant results, and that will empower you to keep your space in order thereafter. So she's basically saying, if you power through and you get it done right then and there, you're going to be like, oh my God, I did this. You're kind of like training your brain. Oh my God, I did this. I got this knocked out. And then you're going to be ready to move on to the next things, because you're going to see how good it feels. But if you just keep delaying everything and you keep putting everything off and you only say, okay, because, we try to sucker out of it and we're like, well, I am this, or I am working on this, or, I do, I have, no, because you're not going to get the results. You're not going to be able to see how it feels. You're putting off the benefit of this whole process of getting rid of the clutter. So if you set the goal that you're going to get this done, set that goal for that day and knock it out in that day. Within reason. If this is something that you can do within the day, just get it done, because then you'll be motivated. Then you'll be ready to move on. Maybe, if you have a house full of clutter, obviously you might not be able to get it done in a day, but knock one project out per day. If it's clutter in every room, commit to dealing with the clutter in that space, in the bedroom that day. Get it done that day. By any means necessary, get it done that day. Before you end that day, and then you'll see what that feels like. And then the fourth problem that they say is a reason why we are dealing with clutter is because, which is very ironic. You're a perfectionist. You could be a perfectionist. And if you know in your mind that you cannot perfect what it is that you're trying to do, then you just don't do it at all, because you know that you're not equipped to do it. So you do nothing. And this could be like, let's say you're in a space, or you're in a house, and you've really been trying to move and you want to purchase a new home, right? And you might not be in the best financial state to be able to move. You've outgrown your space. You're ready to get into a bigger house with more space, and you haven't been able to do that. And so because you've outgrown this space, you're accumulating all of these things, and you definitely need more space, but and you know what you want to do with your space. You know what you want, but it's like you want it to be such a very specific way, and you know that you need this one piece of this puzzle to come together for it to be that way, but it can't be, and so you just don't do anything at all. This is where the solution to this is where you use visualization. You visualize what your space would look like. You visualize what your home would look like, even if you're not in that dream home that you have yet, even if you haven't been able to get approved for that home loan or to get that new house just yet. What would it be like if you were in that space? Use that and manifest the space that you're in now. When you guys think about it and you listen to these entries, the one thing that I have to ask for you to do is to always be really honest with yourself. Really be honest with yourself about where you're at, what you've been doing, what hasn't been working, what you haven't tried, what you did try and isn't working, but you're still doing it anyway. Really, we got to really be honest with ourselves. And self-awareness is a big part of the success of anything, honestly. Being self-aware, understanding what role you're playing in the problem, so that then you can then come up with the solution. Operating in chaos is not always a great thing. That is not a skill. I don't care what y'all say. And sometimes people say that. I remember I would say that, yeah, I kind of operate best in chaos. I operate best under pressure. That's not always the best thing. That shouldn't be something that you strive to do. When I was reading through the book, she had a little statement in the book, and she said, To truly cherish the things that are important to you, you must first discard those that have outlived their purpose. Did y'all hear that? Nope, hold on. You was moving around. You was doing something else. I don't think you heard me. Let me say that part again. To truly cherish the things that are important to you, you must first discard those that have outlived their purpose. All of the things that have outlived their purpose in your life, you have to let go of those things so that you can really, really embrace what you got going on right now. Oh, do y'all realize how deep that goes? Do y'all realize what that means? If you really want to embrace and enjoy a new season in your life, how are you going to do that if you are hanging on to things that have outlived their purpose? You don't need that anymore. You don't need that person anymore. So you don't need, like, that person has showed you who they are, what they're capable of doing, and how they are no longer serving the purpose in your life, right? So you have to let that person go. And letting that person go means letting go of the things that person did to you. Does that mean that you will forget? Absolutely not. But in what way are you going to be able to let go of those things so that you can move on and embrace something better for you? When you want to embark on a new season in your life, when you want to embark on a new journey and you want a fresh start, you got to discard some things, sis. And it might be a lot. And it might be hard to do, but you will not regret it. You just first have to do it. So, there is a part 2, and there is a part 2, so I'm gonna go ahead and just wrap this part up so we can get into the next part of this. So I want to leave you with your journal, your self-discovery journal prompt. Get on board with us. Make sure you have a journal, because I'm going to give you a journal prompt for each entry. And I want you guys to really think about it, and I want you guys to put it in your journal. I want you guys to reflect on it, and I want you guys to write about it. Okay? So your self-discovery journal prompt is, what is something that you will regret later if you don't do it now? So I want you to think about that. Think about that, and think about what we've been talking about. We've been talking about clutter. We've been talking about cluttered minds. We've been talking about cluttered hearts. Ooh, listen. What do you need to do? If you don't do it now, what are you going to regret later on if you don't do it right now? There might be some things that you will regret if you keep hanging on to things and not realizing how hanging on to these things is creating an attachment, an emotional attachment, a mental attachment, and how that mental attachment is restraining you from growth, the growth that you need to embark on the new season. Listen, do y'all really hear me? Are y'all really listening right now? If you don't let go of some of that stuff now, you are going to regret it later, because you are going to miss out on a lot of great things right now if you don't let some of that stuff go. All right? So, I'm going to stop right there, and we'll get into part 2. I want to talk about really quick, just a couple of announcements, you guys. I want to talk about a sponsorship and advertising opportunities. If you guys are interested in sponsoring this platform, There are a couple of different ways that you can do so. Please email me blogqueenpodcast@gmail.com, and we can discuss some of the ways that you can sponsor for a very minimal price. You can subscribe to this, which if you subscribe to the podcast, which there will be a link in the show notes. If you actually subscribe, that unlocks some features. If you have subscribed, I need you to email me to let me know. I want you to email me so that we can kind of like, I want to customize whatever, your sponsorship. Subscribing to the actual podcast unlocks some things that we can work on together. It's not just you having access to podcast entries that no one else does. There's more. I'm going to pour into you. If you're going to pour into me, I'm going to pour into you. So there's different ways that you can subscribe. And once you become a subscriber, you are an official sponsor. And so we'll talk about how we can work on that. Check out the Thoughts of a Blog Queen column, which is on the sharingpinkpromos.com website. There is a Thoughts of a Blog Queen column. Check out some of the things that I've written. I got some blogs over there. Nice little blogs, different things. Check me out over there. Make sure you guys are following me on my Instagram. All of that stuff, y'all know I'm going to put it in the show notes. Yeah. I appreciate you guys. I really do. And I've been getting wonderful feedback lately from some listeners that I have. I haven't checked my analytics, so I don't know. I don't know where I'm getting streamed the most yet. I haven't checked on that. Last month it was Florida. Florida was showing out, and Florida was streaming me. So I like to check and see where I'm getting streamed the most. But all in all, I've been getting just a few. I've been hearing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but it's been positive, and I love that. I love that. I love when I hear from you guys that listen. So, again, if you're a new listener and you're tuning in today, I hope that you kind of got an idea of how I maneuver through these entries and how I like to try to speak to the hearts of my audience. I appreciate you guys taking your time out. You could have been doing 101 other things right now other than tuning into my podcast, but you just understand that when you tune in and you stream this episode, that helps me. That helps me, and that's boosting me in just a little way, right? It's just a baby step in the right direction in what I'm trying to do, in ways that I'm trying to expand the platform and build on things and be creative with these things. So I just appreciate it. I just appreciate everybody that gives me that feedback. If you guys have tuned in for the first time and you have not left a review for me, I would absolutely love, if you're tuning in on Apple Podcasts, I would love it if you could rate and leave a review and let me know something that you liked about the entry that you've just tuned into, or another entry that you've heard, the platform in general. If you also can leave a review on Spotify. You can leave your thoughts over there. I would appreciate it. But you guys can always reach out to me. I'm working on some things with subscribers. I am getting the private Facebook group organized for some new subscribers that I'm getting. It's coming together. So again, just you guys know how to reach me. You can DM me on any social media that you happen to follow me on. DM me there, email me, and we'll get in contact and we will work out whatever it is that we need to work out. Again, you guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Happy Self-Care Sunday. And until next time, you guys, peace and blessings.
To the Thoughts of a Blog Queen podcast.
These are just my thoughts.
With your host, LaRae Renee.
A woman, her thoughts, and a mic.
Are you ready? Check this out.